Hi, Mike Mulligan on Pilgrim. So this is I was going to do a lot shorter. I was just going to read these two things and at the petition board and get it on paper. You know, that was the intention of this. But you know, and send a message. And so, oops. The President's Commission on the accident at TMI. When this was going on, 1979, I was in a fast submarine, and I was in the Mediterranean, and believe me, we were watching Iran and a lot of players. We spent a lot of in 1979 we spent a lot of time watching the likes of Iran. When this accident was going on. Matter of fact, I was under the water, and we didn't hear about this for 2 weeks later. Actually, when I first heard about TMI, I was heading into Israel to have a couple of days of rest, and I forget the name of the harbor. But anyways, October 30th, 1979. In the testimony we received, one word occurred over and over again, that the word of mindset. At our public hearing, Roger Matson, director of NRC's Division of Safety System, used the words 5 times within a span of 10 minutes. For example, I think the mindset was that the operator was forced for good. That is, disconnected him. It was a measure of conservatism. In other words, they concentrated on equipment, assuming that the presence of operators could improve the situation. They would not be part of the problem. We note as a preoccupation with regulations. It is, of course, the responsibility of Nuclear Regulatory Commission to issue regulations to assure the safety of nuclear power plants. However, we are convinced that regulations alone cannot assure safety. Indeed, once regulations become as voluminous and complex as those regulations now in place, they can serve as a negative factor in nuclear safety. The regulations are so complex that immense efforts are required by the utility, by its suppliers, and by the NRC to assure the regulations are complied with. The satisfaction of regulatory requirements is equated with safety. This commission believes that it is a absorbing concern with safety that will bring about. We believe this is an absorbing concern with safety that will bring about safety, not just meeting of a narrowly prescribed and complex regulation. You know, of course, regulations. Too many regulations is the same thing as having no regulations, right? You can pull any interpretation of a regulation out of your ass and to mean anything you want, type of thing. And this is occurring more than ever. You know, the certainty of following the regulations and meeting the regulatory content in a fragmented manner. You know, what we see in the media, you know, they're always safe, they always follow regulations, and this simplified version of life. I mean, that's the way. They can't explain the problem because we're all freaking idiots out here in the real world, and we have really short attention spans, and the media doesn't want to spend any time on it, you know, because they ain't got any money anymore and stuff, and so they, you know, so this is the easy way to for the NRC to explain something on their side. You know, we're meeting the regulations. It was in the regulations. We are safe, and that's all they talk about. It's a way of lying, really, and that type of stuff. It's a really fragmented and narrow way of looking at the life. That they feed us that simplified bullshit, and we all take it. You know, we all accept it as is, because nobody knows the nuclear language. Very few people get to understand and learn the nuclear language in this complicated endeavor we're on, and so you know, in words, words. Here I am stuttering most of my way through this, and everybody knows I got issues with communications. But one thing I know is that, you know, words. You know, we don't have a we don't have a single definition of satisfactory. You know, the word satisfactory. We all have multiple definitions in our heads of satisfactory. We call these multiple definitions of satisfactory or any words up for a particular purpose. If you know what I mean. In other words, I'm saying words can be very slippery. Thus, regulations can be very slippery. Regulations are a wonderful invention, and laws are a wonderful invention and stuff like that. But it's not black and white. Don't you kid yourself that it is black and white. That when they say that, you know, it's according to regulations, or we were safe, don't kid yourself. That's the end of the story. You know, like science itself, like almost any endeavor we have, science, a hammer. You know, a hammer can be used for good or bad. It can build a church, or it can smash somebody's head in, right? Science is the same way. It's a wonderful invention, new technology. It can be wonderful, but, you know, the person who uses that technology for good or bad leverages his power, if you see what I mean. It's a power leverager, and it only depends upon what your intent is. And, of course, who will obstruct your, if you go in the wrong direction, who will prevent you from doing wrong and stuff. And it's the same way with words and regulations. And, you know, they're weaselly most of the time, and we can use regulation in a good to enforce good behavior, and we can also use them same words to justify bad behavior. So the exact same set of words and stuff like that. I mean, that's how complicated our minds are, and how complicated words are, our definitions and stuff like that. There's many. A word has many definitions as in a group, especially, and certainly we all have different renditions of how we use the definition of a word in our head. That's what I'm saying is, you know, regulations to control a bad actor who's trying to make more money and more status. I mean, that's a good use of regulations to control him. Regulations to control the NRC, to, you know, limit their involvement with a utility. That's a bad intent to use regulations and the definitions of words itself. You know, a regulator can either be transparent and show, get the information and show it to everybody that wants to see it, or a regulator can, you know, use regulations to hide information and stuff, and to kind of make lying and conniving and all that sort of stuff legitimate. Or at least allow, you know, creates an environment of loose regulations and loose transparency, or very little transparency, and it creates the environment of corruption and doing things behind everybody's back, you know, and stuff. So, you know, like I said, a hammer can be used for either doing good, building a church, or building a hospital, or could, you know, be used for bad purposes of hurting people and smashing skulls. You ought to remember that one too. So that's what you know. I don't know if it's necessarily, you know, you can have fixated on, you know, the triplicate proof of wrongdoing, or, you know, ironclad regulatory sentence type of thing. and you could be so hesitant to act that you use regulations to justify non-behavior, non-interaction, right? You can justify, we got a assortment, we got so many rules. Well, I'm going to use these rules to justify, spin all these rules around to justify standing off at a distance and not doing nothing. Or you could have a few set of rules to justify jumping in and trying to do something. It's just the human spirit. We use things for what we want, right? We all of us can do that and stuff. And like I say, a decent person and a beautiful human spirit, usually carries the day, and you ought to be looking around for that. So, anyways, here's Ostendorff. What's his name? Commissioner Bill Ostendorff. To me, he's a typical nuclear person who is has an extreme pro-nuclear view. I really don't respect him. To be truthful, he's a decent guy, but as far as I don't think he's doing right by the nuclear industry. That's why this speech stands out. That's why this speech, his recent speech, and it asks us who we are. Who are we? It asks us, what behaviors are necessary for us to make a good world, and it doesn't ask, what behaviors does the guy next to you do to make a better world? It asks us, what's our part in this world, and do we have a responsibility to jump into problems and fix them, and no matter what the risk and stuff like that. When there's big issues on board, is that part of why we're here? Is to jump into these problems, come hell or high water, and try to make a better world? And that's basically what Ostendorff asked us in his most recent speech. It's an unbelievably beautiful speech. All of us here today should ask the simple question of ourselves and our organization. If we have learned the true lesson of Fukushima, we will all ask, who are we? And ask it now. Each individual involved in the nuclear field plays an important role in assuring health, safety, security, and the public we serve. We cannot afford the reverie of reputation and past glory. We cannot afford the comfort of illusion. We cannot afford the luxury of overconfidence. We cannot wait for the next meltdown to ask hard questions and take a hard answer. Who are we? Who are we that this could have happened? These are excerpts. We asking, who are we, means stripping away, I already said that, away myth and illusion and taking a cold, hard look. It can force us to ask if we are doing all that we can do to live up to the values and principles we promote, to assure we are meeting the standards we have set for ourselves. We in this rooms, the representing regulators, the power companies, vendors, the NGOs and others, we all play a role in the nuclear enterprise. Our roles, whether we are in the industry, serve as observers and critics of the industry, or work as regulators, require us to act with special responsibility. With that responsibility in mind, I ask each of you here today, who are you? Remember these words penned by Dr. Kawa. Our reluctance to question authority, our devotion to sticking with the program, our groupism, and our insularity. Read these words and ask yourself, who are we? Then he talks about nuclear vendors. But I question whether your capabilities are living up to the expectation of your customers. He's got a lot of things right here. They can't. It's a speech, but that's all it is. He's throwing words out in the air. As far as the NRC itself, they're not creating an environment of enforcing his ideas. These ideals, the agency doesn't enforce the truths of the everlasting truths of this speech. I mean, he knows good. Utilities. Who are you? Many of the power companies present today once maintained large engineering and project management teams that oversaw and often managed the construction of nuclear power plants. Most companies reduced significantly their engineering capabilities as deregulation came into vogue. To be entirely honest, I'm skeptical that most of you could successfully oversee the construction of a new nuclear power plant today, even among those companies that currently have new plant applications before the agency. Nuclear plants, just as a by the way, I think these utilities have lack of skills and expertise, and building new nuclear plants should be the role of the government, to create a TAV type of operation there and build them by the dozen. Identically, but that's another thing. Are you the companies you think you are, or are some of you falsely confident in your reputations for engineering and management excellence when much of your past expertise is sitting by a pool in Florida? Or are some of you expecting that you will be able to call your favorite vendor to deal with a complex emerging problem? Even under the best of circumstances, vendors will require close expert oversight. These are your plants, and you are responsible for the ratepayers and the public for all the work done on your sites. Blaming the vendor if things go wrong will buy you little sympathy. He knows. He can say it in a speech, but he can't enforce it, right? There's too much power above him. They could do another Jasco, with him if he got off the track. They could vilify him and put him under a vice, and make him squeal, and just like Jasco. Now, to the staff, who are you? Nonetheless, I sometimes worry that the success itself can lead to future problems. We warn licensees to avoid the trap of complacency. When things are going well, and you are recognized for your excellence, that usually is the point when things begin to go wrong. How so right is that? Success is a generator of collapse, and collapse is the generator of success. It's when you get down the deep hole and you can't go any further, and that's when you start digging your way out, right? That's when you start facing your problems. You finally come to the end of the road, and that's when you start facing your problems and behaving in a different way, and that leads to your success off in the distance, the unimaginable success off in the distance. Success leads to failure, and failure leads to success. When things go wrong and well, you are recognized for your excellence in that, and usually that is, I already went through that. It is easily missed the early signs of troubles when others continually point to you as the gold standard. A lot of plants. I was at Vermont Yankee, and I was in the bowels of troubles, emerging problems, and talking to the NRC and leaking to the press and all that sort of stuff. And I had executives that talked to me, they knew who I was, and they kept saying, Mike, our stockholders wouldn't. Our stocks are at historic highs, right? If we were misbehaving like you think we are, we wouldn't have such high stock prices. Look at the NRC. They think we're a wonderful operating plant, a golden plant, and that type of thing, and stuff. So when I was doing this, when I was at Vermont Yankee, I got a lot of that. It's impossible to think we're anything but rated A, and after I got fired, within a few short years, within 2 years for certainly, they went from their high stock price to right next to bankruptcy. and stuff. And that's when a lot of things kind of built up, and they got into a lot of troubles and all that sort of stuff. And so, and then they started getting downgraded by the NRC and stuff. And so, insiders can see a lot, and they can see a lot that the regulators can't see and stuff. And so, I just say my behaviors look kind of crazy when I was my last year at Vermont Yankee. But in the end, when you look at it 2 years, as far as when public service of Vermont was near bankruptcy for the next 10 years, I was right perfect. My thing was, as far as reminding everybody that these things that were going on, as far as taking shortcuts and keeping machinery safe, and the proper maintenance and stuff, and warning the public that there was problems at Vermont Yankee and you ought to pay attention to Vermont Yankee. I was spot on right. I was spot on right. I didn't really know how right I was. I just had a feeling, but I was spot on right. A get-along, Ostendorff. A get-along to go-along mentality can be a side effect of enduring success in any organization, but as a safety regulator, it's a cancer. It is a subtle disease that starts deep inside the body and spread, not becoming apparent until it's too late. Palisades, Fort Calhoun, San Onofre, Arkansas Nuclear now, and stuff like that. The NRC thinks that they're doing such a wonderful job, and they cannot even talk to us about how they, problems that they have as far as controlling utilities. They always got to espouse this happy tunes type of philosophy, because they're afraid, the utilities will go wild on them, and the politicians will heap on them, and so they, in order to survive, they got to they got to throw out the happy land. And it's really too bad we all can't be big enough to talk about our sins and talk about the things we do that we wish we didn't do, and stuff like that. It would be a lot better if we could do those kinds of things and talk about our problems, our issues with people and machines and stuff, and let us ventilate a little bit and discuss these things openly. And that's a wonderful environment. Just the idea of doing this and out in the open, in the public arena and stuff like that. That's a wonderful behavior changing opportunity, because you get to see, most of the time you're in a little tunnel and all by yourself in a couple of cohorts that think exactly like you, but you get in this arena, in a public arena, and you have different people, with different perceptions and stuff like that. And it's not one perception that's right and one's wrong. We're all right, really, when it comes down to it. We just don't all see everybody takes a piece of the picture, and if you put us all together, that's the explaining the problem. That is the greater picture. That's just what I feel. It is a subtle disease that can start deep inside the body and spread and not become apparent till it's too late. Is that what's happening here now with the NRC and stuff? I don't remember the words penned by Kurokawa. Our reluctance to question authority, our devotion to sticking with the program, our groupism and insularity. Read these words and ask yourself, who are we? All of us here today should ask the simple question of ourselves and our organization. If we have learned the true lessons of Fukushima, we will all ask, who are we? And ask it now. Each individual involved in the nuclear field plays an important role in ensuring health, safety, and security of the public we serve. We cannot afford the reverie of reputation and past glory. We cannot afford the comfort of illusion. We cannot afford the luxury of overconfidence. We cannot wait for the next meltdown to ask the hard questions and take on the hard answers. And they don't need a full meltdown. They just need a scandal, right? In the United States, maybe in the closed-knit society of Japan, it takes 3 nuclear meltdowns to get everybody questioning. In the United States, we do another 3 TMI and have very little off-site release and and find that scandal like they discovered, they were hiding problems and downplaying problems for years, and they had poor training, poor maintenance, and all that crap. If that was ever to pop up again and stuff like that, that would be almost as bad as a meltdown in the United States as they had in Fukushima. There would be a hue and cry throughout the land, and the NRC would be radically transformed, and many politicians would get elected on the anti-nuclear sentiment. So don't think that you need an impossible three-plant meltdown in the United States to create havoc for the nuclear industry and the world at large. In the United States at large would be in terrible shape if a scandal cascaded into shutting down half our nuke plants and that type of thing. We'd be in terrible shape. Electric prices would be terrible. And so there you are. I mean, it's a wonderful speech and stuff. But I want you to know that how Region 1 behaves and how Ostendorff's the beautiful ideals of Ostendorff's speech are radically different. And the question is, does Ostendorff and the rest of the commissioners accept what Region 1 is doing? How they're withholding information and not being communicative to everybody, and to the business with the antis and the where they the ISFA pad or whatever it's called with a cat, where they put old fuel in big casks and stuff like that, where the antis had pictures, and the NRC was so incompetent they didn't know what was going on, they didn't want to ask, all that sort of stuff. Then of course when I started talking about asking about the SRVs, and talk to me about the SRVs, and I'm going to give you an opportunity. You can tell me things, and I'd get it in the media, and we could create the process of change for energy. If you just play secrets and stuff like that, you're in bed with them and stuff. And so just these beautiful truths that they learned out of a horrible situation in Japan, and all that suffering, and the many people that had to evacuate the area, the terrible issues with not having electricity that's still right at the edge of Japan, and that type of thing. I mean, that's a horrendous issue, and so he was talking about that issue, and what's an ethical and honest way of behaving, right? Beautiful words, but at Region 1, they're doing exactly the opposite. Do you think they're so disconnected? Do you think Ostendorff, I mean, obviously he has information about how plants really work. We believe that. He speaks of profound truths. But, so he's been exposed to it, or at least heard it from other people, and stuff like that. But why does he talk one way and Region 1 talk another way? Ostendorff speaks of really beautiful enlightenment. Region 1 speaks of almost like a dictator in South America, Russia before they had their Chernobyl and stuff like that, or the revolution and stuff like that. Region 1 speaks of the worst of humanity, as far as talking to us and not talking to us in a canned and insecure manner. Ostendorff talks about these ideals that are beautiful. I just sit here and say, well, is they just disconnected, or is this they know what's going on, and Ostendorff knows what's going on, and he wants to prettify the NRC with speeches, knowing to hide what's going on in Region 1 or Region 4 or Region 3. He talk in a pretty fine way, and and create a and say, oh yeah, you know, the NRC's got what went on in Fukushima, so we can trust Ostendorff and the commissioners to do the right thing. But you start looking down at the Region 1 level and how they're treating the public, and how they're communicating with the public, and how they're communicating inside information with the public, and allowing the public to create a transition in an energy pilgrim and energy itself, and within the NRC, because you know that's what creates transformation is information. You know, hopefully creating a window where you see what really is going on, and you allow the utility to see that, and then you allow the utility to see the response of the public. And you know those are powerful things. Those things are the things that transformed us in the 60s and 70s, and it made us half of the people we are today, as far as you know our ethics and honesty and all that sort of stuff. So, and transformed this. You know, Martin Luther King. I mean, that's what he did. He was a miracle of transparency. He allowed us to, you know, all the bigots and stuff were allowed to express what kind of people the blacks were. Well, you know, once the media allowed us to see somebody like Martin Luther King, and allowed us to see the people who were bloodied in Alabama and all that sort of stuff, and allowed us to see that there were humans like us that suffered and cried and bled and stuff, that created this transparency. That was the magic that created great national change. And stuff like that. There's this sense of transparency, allowing us to see the world that it really is. See how the whites, the bigoted whites, were treating the blacks and stuff like that. That's what created unfortunately, a lot of the blacks haven't been freed with their economic troubles. They've been allowed to vote, and most, the institutional prejudice has disappeared. And stuff. It really hasn't created much change in a lot of lives, but you know, the institutional prejudice, those days are over with. We see it in sports, right? And we see it in our president and stuff. They've come a long ways as far as that's concerned. But as far as the majority of the blacks, they don't have as much wealth, and they don't have as much income security and all that sort of stuff. And so that's what, the same thing at Pilgrim. It's a sense of, if you allowed us to see all these human behaviors, these terrible human behaviors, instead of giving us this closed Russian dictatorship type of deal, that the Region 1 is more like a dictator. And giving us happy stories and being revolutionaries, and okay, we're gonna help energy transform itself and all of the New England plants. We're going to transform the NRC itself and make the industry stronger and more acceptable to the public and stuff. So I just want what I'm trying to get out of here is, it was a wonderful speech by Ostendorff. What Region 1 is doing is completely contradicting that. I'm not sure if it's because one hand can't see the other, or this is a strategy of the NRC to, appease, make them look better than they really are acting. So I'm Mike Mulligan here, and my mouth is really tired today. Thank you.